Welcome to a bonus episode of the 3OGsBS podcast. No full show this week, so we're gonna jump into a little bit of what happened at the CONCACAF Champions Cup with FC Cincinnati last night and Tigres. Um, they literally collapsed. There are losses and then there are complete avalanches. And FC Cincinnati didn't just get knocked out of the CONCACAF Champions Cup by Tigres. They watched a 3-goal cushion melt like ice on a July sidewalk. To get knocked out in the final seconds of stoppage time after a 3-0 advantage and get it turned into a 5-4 aggregate defeat is pretty brutal. Now the question that felt like it was completely unthinkable at the beginning of this season has heard that whisper get a little bit louder. Is Pat Noonan on the hot seat at this point? It's hard to tell what the organization's thinking, but a 1-3 start in MLS and then the knockout last night has people asking that question. For 180 minutes in this matchup, you saw two completely different versions of FC Cincinnati. The first leg, they won 3-0. They looked organized, clinical, and confident. But then in the second leg, they lose 5-1. They looked reactive, overwhelmed, and like just hanging on by a thread. Tigres came out like a team with nothing to lose and everything to prove. FCC, they looked like a team trying to protect something instead of trying to finish the job. When the fourth goal for Tigres went in, the tie was level. Denke scored. Flicker of hope, right? Like just a little bit of hope there in the 65th minute. And then in stoppage time, the lights went out. But what actually went wrong? It's not just a bad night. It's exposed cracks that have been quietly forming already this season. Game management hasn't been good. Up 3-0 on aggregate, the mission seemed really, really simple to me. Control the tempo, limit the chaos, survive moments. And instead, FC Cincinnati pulled into a track meet. Nick Hagglund can't hang at this point in my mind, and I love Nick. Like I think he's a great dude. But you saw the back line get stretched, the midfield kind of lost control. There's definitely some defensive shape issues, and they unraveled there. And there's just not execution happening, and it's a game management issue. Under pressure, they're just fragile. This one's super uncomfortable for me because once Tigres scored once, you're like, all right, fine, okay. Twice, still manageable, but then it's at 3 times, you're completely rattled. Like the fourth one, you have to think complete mental avalanche. This team is not ready to play. They're not prepared to go into games. They had no mentality to go in and finish this off. Great teams absorbed that pressure, and FCC absorbed it and then cracked. There's no close the door identity here. Championship level teams have that switch. We're done playing. You're not scoring again. That's something that needs to happen. Cincinnati never found that switch. Like they just don't have that blood in the water mentality. You saw from Tigres though, once that started going, they were going. Whether that's personnel, leadership, or tactical adjustments, I'm not really 100% sure there, but it's definitely missing right now. The bigger concern here is that this isn't an isolated incident. Like, take a second to zoom out. The MLS record, 1-3, right? Not a good start to the MLS season. The Champions Cup collapse after a 3-0 lead. How last season ended in the collapse against Miami. I'm struggling to control games and finish opponents. A lot of moving parts over the last season, like from last season to this season, and new bodies in. But this isn't just one bad result. It's really starting to look like a pattern for the team. So the question becomes, and I hate to say this because like I think that Pat Noonan has brought something new to this team when he came in and when Chris Albright came in from a really, really bad point in the organization to now like expected to win. right? There's an expectation there. Um, is Pat Noonan on the hot seat? I'm not saying this to create any drama or to overreact, but we can't ignore the reality either. It Here's the case against the panic, right? Noonan has built this team into a legitimate contender. They weren't there. He and Albright both brought these guys in, and they've been a contender since they've been here. Recent success buys a little bit of that time and trust, but you can see it on Twitter. People are starting to ask the question. Early season struggles are not uncommon with teams, so there's some stuff there that okay, it's early, and he's earned credibility, and to me that matters. But I keep seeing more and more after every game, fans getting into that. Is this the time? Do they need to move on? Now, there's a case for that pressure. Um, and here's where it gets interesting for me. The team looks mentally fragile in big moments. A collapse like this against Tigres raises those tactical questions. Um, Results across competitions are trending downward, so that's where people are looking at that. And front offices don't just look at the results; they look at the trajectory. And like right now, that isn't pointing up. It's definitely on that downward spiral. It's hard to know what the organization is thinking there, but you can see why people are starting to get asked the question: Is Noonan on his way out? If this doesn't get better. So here's the reality: the hot seat isn't hot, but it's definitely warming up. I would say Noonan isn't on the hot seat today, but the seat's not as cold as it was before, right? It's probably lukewarm, and if the results don't start turning quickly, the temperature rises fast in MLS. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. So this 1-3 league start, and then this Champions Cup debacle is going to put him in a situation where that's going to be a conversation. But what needs to change fast for this team right now? They need to right the ship. The midfield has to control the ball and essentially control the midfield. This team needs to learn how to control the midfield instead of reacting to what's happening as the other team is controlling it. There is no defensive identity right now. Maybe that's because Miazga hasn't been back yet, like full time. That's possible. He was a huge component to that back line. I feel like if you have Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga, and Nick Hagman, their veteran presence should make the other players better. I've not been a fan of Teenage Hidebi. I know that other people really do like him. I don't see what everybody else is seeing, and that could be just me. But there are times when he's on the ball that, like, I feel like he panics with the ball at his feet. I think you maybe move Alvis Powell into a role where it's Powell, Miazga, Robinson, and maybe Flores back there, and see kind of what you can do to find that defensive identity. There's got to be some sort of change there in order to make this team better defensively. Leadership on the field. I said this when Acosta was here. I didn't like his body language, but his teammates responded to it for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just me thinking like every time he'd throw his hands up when he'd turn the ball over or somebody else would make a mistake. But for some reason, the team gravitated towards his leadership. Last season, especially towards the end, it felt as though like there wasn't that leadership there. I think Evander could be that leader, but I'm not in the locker room. So maybe there's somebody else in there, and maybe Miazga's return is what they need to find that leadership, and that'll fix the problem. From here on out, the rest of this MLS season, they're going to need to win ugly games. getting a 2-1 result, just finding a way to get a point, maybe on the road. A big win would be those rivalry matches, especially the Hellas Real Derby. But they're going to have to find ugly ways to win, and it doesn't need to be pretty. They just need to get those points. Because sitting in 11th, I believe right now, I'm not looking at it. I think it's 11th with the 1-3 record, not the place they need to be. So while this game last night wasn't just a loss, it was a mirror of what's happening so far this season, and where FC Cincinnati can look in the mirror and say, "This is who we are." And right now, that's where they are. And to me, I think they're talented. I think they're dangerous, and they're just not ruthless enough. They don't go out with that blood in the water mentality. That's something that has to change. They've got the pieces. It really and there are moments when you see and you're like, "Yep, yeah, that's it." Like, are we missing some of the guys that were here last year that created some of that? I think so. I think there are guys that are still trying to find their footing and figure out where they're at. But they're a talented group. On paper, they look great. Danke, like, he scored again last night. I don't know what the answer is when you look at them, but they're just not ruthless enough. They don't feel like they're ready to go take out their opponent on any given night. So I hope that this clears up and the season gets better. But I'm not 100% sure that they're ready to go with that. Maybe it's a change in leadership. Maybe it's a change on the field, some sort of tactical thing. I mean, they did make a tactical. They let a coach go in the offseason, who, by all accounts, when Kinnear was here, I thought that times they looked super dangerous. Now he's gone. There seems to be no tactical identity of this team. So let's hope that over the next couple games they get it figured out, and kind of go from there. It's hard to know all the answers. We're not in the locker room. As fans, you're watching games and you look and you're just, completely overwhelmed at times. New England put it on them last week. Then Tigres last night. This game on Sunday against Montreal at 1:00 is huge. They've got to right the ship here. Montreal is a team that is gonna put some pressure on them. It's a home match, so the fans will be loud. They always show up, but they're gonna have to right the ship against Montreal in order to try to get things going in the right direction. If they fall to 1-4 in MLS with a loss to Montreal, it could be a really long season. I did say at the beginning of the year I thought this was probably a year where they went 500, and now I'm questioning whether it's even close to 500 at this point. I'm hopeful that I'm wrong. I hope they're able to right this ship and get things going in the right direction, and the fans can get excited about it. But I definitely see people out on Twitter asking the question, is it time to move on? Taylor Twellman posted a tweet last night on X that said Evander is a player that's now entering the disappearing in big games reputation. Is he right? I mean, to me, yes. And it's becoming a pattern. And he seems not to care. And I think that's a problem for sure. But how do they find their way to get back into the mix here? Like, you lose to New England in what was an absolute disaster. You know, this is not just a one off. 2 games in a row, it looks bad. Um, I don't understand what the mentality is right now of this team. So I could beat this dead horse all day. We're just gonna let it go. But go back and look at a few of the goals from last night and the number of players standing around, especially on the last goal in the 98th minute, when Tigres scores to finish it off. There's too many guys standing around watching the ball. Just no desperation to get it out of there. So Tigres wanted it more last night. New England seemed to want it more last weekend in the MLS, and now FC Cincinnati has to try to find their identity to redo this season and really get going. So thanks for watching our bonus episode here at the 3-0 Goalies. The guys will return very, very soon. We're excited to get back to guest interviews. I promised everybody that I would do a bonus episode for this week, given that the schedules for everybody were kind of out of whack. So thanks again for watching the 3-0 Goalies. I hope you enjoy my rant about FC Cincinnati as much as you can. And for those of you that aren't FCC fans, we'll be talking about some other teams throughout time as well. A lot of you know I'm a Man United fan. We've got a couple other guys that are into other teams and support other squads as well. So we'll cover some other teams throughout the season. We're really excited about the U.S. Open Cup. Congratulations to Indy 11 for getting their win against Des Moines Menace this past week. And then Carrie Taylor, her team, our previous guest Carrie Taylor, her team out in Spokane got their Open Cup win as well this past week. So as you know on this show, we really do like the Open Cup. We'll continue to follow that, and maybe we'll do an Open Cup bonus episode here over the next week or two. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time here on the 3-0 Goalies.